Hi, everyone. I'm Caroline Miller, your host for Just Read It. This is a Pacific Northwest program where local writers get to stick in their oar about what's going on in some of the New York Times bestsellers. Today, we're going to be discussing First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston and my two very fine and many published writers are Lauren Kessler, who writes narrative nonfiction, and Jan Baross, uh, whose latest book is Bye Bye Bakersfield, and it's the winner of the Kate Snow Award. And I know, Lauren, you've had 15 publications, and I think you've won an award. You can tell us about that. So anyway, gals, welcome to the program. I'm going to start with you, Lauren. Give us a brief overview of what you write. And I know you've got a new book coming up, so briefly give us a little shot about that.
Happy to do that. So as you said, Caroline, I am a narrative nonfiction writer, author, book writer, which means I write true fact-based stories crafted as stories. So the best compliment that one could give me is it reads like a novel, but it is fully reported and researched. I am interested in everything, which is why I became a writer. So my work has spanned across a lot of different subjects. My last two books are actually about prison life and what it is like to live your whole life when it is an incarcerated life. Also, what it is like to go back into the world after being incarcerated for 20, 30, or 40 years. I've also written about ballet. I've written about the science of aging. I have written 2 biographies. What else? I've written about teenage girls like mine.
Okay.
Crazy.
You want to give us a little taste of what your new book coming out will be like and will be on?
Sure. Oops. My new book, which is out in February, is called Everything Changes Everything. I'm just pulling this up here. Hold on. Everything Changes Everything. Love, loss, and a really long walk. So it is about facing what we'd rather avoid, about the wounds we carry and hide and sometimes heal. It's about choosing hardship, the grace of temporary friendship, the power of movement to unstick what is stuck. More specifically, it is 500 miles across northern Spain, which I walked solo in order to process my new widowhood and some tragedy that happened in my family. But it is about resistance. And actually, there's parts that are funny. So it is not super depressing.
Well, that's good. That's great to hear, but it certainly is, sounds really intriguing. I've got it written down on my list already. Okay, Jan, I know you're multi-talented. I know you do film and other things. Your last book was Bye Bye Bakersfield, which is a kind of, having been to Bakersfield, I can see why you'd want to say bye-bye to it. Give us a little talk about that, oversight about that, Jan.
Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to mention that I've written a sequel to Bye Bye Bakersfield. Bye Bye Bakersfield is, I guess they call it autofiction. It's part fiction, part autobiography, but it's about a little Jewish girl growing up in Bakersfield, that's me, and having all these events. And she's kind of like Scout in To Kill a Mockingbird, only she's really funny. And I like to write funny. I like to give people a lot of laughs. So that's that. And then now the sequel that I wrote is The Last Virgin in the Haight. And this is the Haight-Ashbury. She leaves home. She gets herself in all kinds of trouble. And the demonstrations and all the cultural wars going on. So that's where I am now. I just finished it, The Last Virgin in the Haight, 2 weeks ago. So we're editing, and then we're going to get it published. So that's where that is.
You have a publishing date in mind, Jan?
No, nothing yet.
No, just, well, congratulations, just finishing it is an achievement. As one who has written a few novels, but not in the numbers in which you guys are producing. All right, let's turn to first line wins. This is a story about a woman who is paid to impersonate people and bring them in and cheat them at the behest of a mysterious Mr. Smith. And one of the things that intrigued me is that at some point in the book, the gal, Evie, what's her name? Evie Porter. Evie Porter finds that there's a woman on the side who's impersonating her, but I'll leave you with that. Her target at the moment is a man named Mr. Ryan Sumner, and it looks like a perfect romance, but of course the book has many twists and turns. Gals, I came across a quote about the book, and of course it takes us to the end, but it gives you a little inkling about Mr. Summers. He was the target because the critics said they're both playing villains, and quote, they're both morally gray characters who deserve each other. And I thought that was kind of interesting. So I'm going to start with you, Lauren. What is your take in the book? And do you, given the so-called happy ending, do you think these two characters deserve each other?
Okay, so I will say that this is not my genre. So it was new for me to read something like this. I do understand the notion of page turning and keeping people reading. And this author certainly did that. I guess I want to say something. I'm not exactly sure how to answer your question. The morally gray thing is very interesting, but we all reinvent and invent ourselves almost every day, and especially on social media, what we choose to show and what we don't show. So there's a way of looking at the book as, how does the book work, and are the characters good, and the plot gymnastics. I would call gymnastics. It's a lot for me, but so when I read it, I was reading it for the notion of invention and how much is ourself and how much is invented, and how we do, in small ways and sometimes big ways, reinvent ourselves depending on who's in front of us. So she's doing it in a criminal sort of way. Presumably we don't do it in a criminal way. But I guess that's my big take on the book, that it is about her and this world that the author has created, but it really is sort of a statement about us.
Very good. There's a certain amount of truth that I hadn't thought about. Now, you said the structure of the book, because I know there's a lot of back and forth between her history and what's going on with the new target. Is that what you're referring to, the back and forth?
I said plot gymnastics.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. And
creative.
Right. And so part of it is that structure, but part of it is just, she is going from thing to thing. Mm-hmm. So it is really plot driven. Mm-hmm. And most of the stuff that I read when I read fiction is character driven. Mm-hmm. So that's why I was delving into the character herself and how much she reflects on how we are. Because I know this is why people read thrillers, but I'm just less interested in the plot. So good plot, lots of plot, but I'm interested in the character.
I once interviewed Philip Margolin for this program, and he's just the reverse. He doesn't give a hoot about the character. He wants a fast, and I guess that makes for literary choices. Jan, what about you now? Lauren has left us with a very intriguing, maybe too philosophical for this. Are we all characters in search of a story which changes constantly? How did you feel about this book?
Well, the way I felt about it, I agree with Lauren. It wasn't my genre either. I like literary fiction, and I'm more interested in the characters and poetic kind of expression that just knocks me out, like Ocean Vuong or somebody. But I have to say it was really an inventive plot, but it was really hard to, back and forth with the flashbacks. And so I had to keep rereading to keep up with what she was trying to do. So I looked at it as a bigger metaphor, like we change, like you're saying, all the time for survival, just plants, animals, the development of a human being, we change and adapt and survive. And that's, I guess, basically the metaphor I'm thinking that she was doing. She could have been a plant or an animal too, but she wanted to survive, and she had herself in a really tough situation. I didn't find the plot as it went on. I found it less and less probable, and then the happy ending was, oh, like, come on. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting something a little more interesting. So that's what I got out of it. I read it and had to reread stuff, and eventually got to the end. And I thought, well, that was an experience that I haven't had before because I don't read these kinds of books. So I was interested to do it.
You were interested in her and what she was going through, because she sort of becomes a victim herself.
Yeah.
The man who was governing her is quite predatory. And so she was, as I say, imagine going to a party. Your profession is to take personalities and find a woman impersonating you. I thought that was quite, but my mom is Hispanic, and they have a wonderful saying, which is, sometimes it's better to just lose one house than two. And so I was kind of interested in your extrapolating a little bit, both you and Lauren, on the ending of the book. Is it a happy ending, so to speak, as it seems to be, or is there a little irony in the end for us? Is there more literature here in this fast pace than we might not foresee? You want to give that a try, Jan? And
well, I think you could go either way with that. It sounded kind of well, it just wasn't an ending I was expecting. I thought it would be a little more of a payoff, and it just seemed to kind of slope down. I go, okay. And so as far as, well, I like the idea. Now that was a nice twist, don't you think? That somebody was impersonating her, because she go impersonating, it's kind of on the flat line here, and then somebody does her. So that twist, that made it more interesting as the book went on.
yeah, personally, I'd have maybe spent a whole novel on that. But how about you, Lauren? What did these characters deserve a happy ending, or is it kind of like no exit? They've got each other for life. Yeah.
Well, there's probably something in between that. And who am I to say who deserves a happy ending? Basically. So I can't talk about that, but I would like to talk about the problems that writers in general have with endings. And I think that Jan was maybe implying this, or this is what I heard. Oftentimes when we're writing something, whether it's an essay or an entire book, it's the end, and it should end in some way. And if we're creating the ending, that's something. If I'm looking at the research that I've done and finding a way to end, It doesn't, it's all artifice where you end, whether you're writing nonfiction or fiction. And I think that because we writers spend a lot of time at the beginning, and then when we get to the end, we spend less time, that our endings tend to be weaker or less nuanced. So I would say less nuanced is what this ending was. And just to throw in something here, so there was a fantastically popular book, Lessons in Chemistry, that you may have read, which is New York. Everybody read it. And I loved the book until the ending. And I thought, oh, really? Just don't disappoint me like that. It doesn't, you do not have to wrap it up. That's an insult to the reader. You do not have to wrap it up. Let it be sloppy. Let me think my way through. Oh, it could be this. Maybe she deserved it. Maybe they deserve each other. I don't know. Are they going to be happy? Is she going to, I mean, is a bus going to hit her tomorrow? I would rather be left with something to think about than to have the author wrap it up for me. Do you think that, Jan? Are you
good point, Lauren. Yeah, that's excellent. I would have loved that much better. I know I agree with you about endings. It took me forever, years, to find an ending to my first book, Jose Builds a Woman, and finally, you get it. But I like that kind of ending where it's open, and then you're not even insulting. You're bringing the reader along to kind of live past the novel, or case non-novel, or no, I mean
story,
nonfiction. That's what.
Yeah, you could say story. Yeah,
Story.
Yeah.
So much more interesting that way, much more challenging.
Mm-hmm.
You see, now I just got, I thought the ending was not wrapped up because of the characters who had walked into each other, and that it was an opportunity for the reader to consider uh, uh, what it means to have honesty, integrity, and truth, and what happens when we play, as you suggested, Lauren, too many roles, and then maybe we can't find ourselves. So I had a different take on the book, and of course that's what's kind of fun. Can we ever really wrap up a book for a reader? I mean, a reader always brings himself or herself to the pages. Do you agree with that, Lauren?
Well, I think that as readers, we deserve to have vastly different responses to books. When everybody hates it or everybody loves it, there's something wrong. So with my own work or anybody else's work, when I'm in a book group and people say I was just riveted, and the next person said, I fell asleep every night. Once you write a book, you let it out. Whatever your intentions were, you can't make the reader feel or think something.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that you got something different out of the ending than I did. I don't. Yeah.
Diversity on my mind. I wonder, Jan, you're right. There's such a thing as intentional fallacy, Jan, where you think you're writing, and you sit down at a book club, and all these people have a different take on what it is you've written. I've interviewed some writers here. Well, I'm not sure they really understood what they wrote. What's your take, Jan, when you get someone who says, "Oh, I thought your book was about," does that offend you, or are you content with that?
That happened, all those reviews on Amazon. So one of the reviews was, well, I thought this was going to be a book like Allende. Jose Builds a Woman was my first book. It was a magical realism. And this woman said, I wanted more ghosts, and just missed, just she was out in left field wanting more Isabel Allende, and I'm not Isabel. So you do get these funny I thought it was funny. Reviews sometimes.
Well, people that were reading your book, but they wanted another book, and then they criticize your book for not being that other book that they wanted.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
what happened. I was hysterical. Jeez.
Right. Bane, I had, well, we're not talking about books, so I won't reminisce about other interviews, but so I guess we're told now the time is going by. I need to wrap it up in the sense of, is this a book that moved you enough that you would recommend it to other people to read, or did you think maybe give it a pass? Lauren, I don't know if you respond to that first.
It is a book that I will probably write an essay in Substack, which I do every Wednesday, about fixed identity and how we don't have it. And we'll reference that book for having me, for prompting me to think that. It's not a book that I'll shout at the rooftops about. There is one thing that we didn't talk about that I just want to throw in there. And I think this is, I hope it's not too philosophical, but when your narrator is a liar, when is she telling the readers the truth? An unreliable narrator who pretends to be somebody else, how do I know that she's not pretending to be somebody else when she's, coming clean with me, when she's talking about anything? I think that is really layered and interesting. And very interesting to contemplate, that's all, without all of the gymnastics of the plot, which for me gets in the way of the big ideas. I love the big ideas in this book.
Yeah, you're touching on what I felt, and the underlying principle: if a liar is telling you the story, is it the truth? So in some ways, Jan, this book, maybe you could respond to what Lauren has said. The book reads like, this is why I say intentional fallacy. A writer may think they're in control, but they aren't. Here is a book that is supposed to pass as a fast-paced, twisty thriller. And yet, when you take Lauren's premises and my thoughts of what makes a happy ending when you have two liars living together, the book offers more dimension, I think, but you have to kind of reach for it. Don't take it. This is my view, Jan. Don't take it at face value. It has a little more substance to it. And who knows, maybe even the author thought about. But it was there in her, and I think Lauren saw it and I saw it. What's your take, Jan?
Well, I think I'm just interested in seeing what the movie is. It's coming out as a movie, and I'd like to see how they.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so yeah, I think it's going to make a terrific movie. Like you say, fast plot. The endings are usually kind of irrelevant at the end, and so that's fine. I'm looking forward to that because also
Would you recommend the book?
Well, I don't have many friends read this, but if somebody said, a fast-paced book, an improbable plot that that I'd enjoy, I'd say sure.
That's funny.
Yeah. Well, of course, that's what literature does. It opens up, wouldn't you say, Lauren, to our own thought processes, and that's its value. So, okay, I don't hear any hard thumbs up, but I think all of us were a little, may I say, intrigued by the book.
Yeah, it was an experience.
Yeah, so maybe we'll just have to leave this one to our audience and let them decide whether they want to take the risk of this interesting adventure. Well, before we close, though, as long as you're on the screen, Jan, give us a rundown of your latest book one more time for our audience.
Oh, okay. It's called The Last Virgin in the Haight-Ashbury, and it's about the 60s and adventures and growing up and finding the man of my dreams and going on from there.
Why did you write it? Why were you compelled to write it? What was in the story that moved you to write it?
Well, I've led such an interesting life that I thought I just wanted to talk about it and leave something behind because I'm getting old now. And this was I just wanted to share my adventures and my take on my generation because it was an interesting generation, really. We faced a lot of things, with the war, the Vietnam War, and the generations with our parents, and there was so much conflict and everything going on. It just lent itself to a good read, fast read, and also, of course, like I said, I like to write funny, so there's plenty of humor in it.
I look forward to it. So it comes out of the well of your own experiences, which all writing does if it's got any merit. And Lauren, again, hit us again so we know what we're supposed to be looking for in your latest works.
Thank you for the opportunity to plug myself again.
Absolutely. That's what we're here for.
My book is called Everything Changes Everything: Love, Loss, and a Really Long Walk. And the really long walk is a hike 500 miles across northern Spain. I have a Substack, which is Lauren J. Kess Substack, and I will be publishing excerpts, short excerpts from the book when it gets closer to publication. I do publish original essays on Substack every week on Wednesday, but Everything Changes Everything, I'll do 300 or 400 word excerpts, probably starting in the late-ish, the midwinter. The book comes out in February, but of course it can be reordered before that. Everything Changes Everything.
Okay, great. Well, my audience, I hope you have been intrigued by the insights of these two very talented ladies who opened up my eyes about this book, many things I hadn't seen. And so consider the book to see what you think in terms of our opinions, and come back to us next time because we publish every 2 months. So you might want to subscribe. We don't sell your names. We don't do advertising. It's just that we publish erratically. But wonderful thing about the Pacific Northwest, and I know my two fellow authors here agree, we do not lack for talent here in the Pacific Northwest when it comes to good writing. So Lauren Kessler's work and Jan Baross's work are also things you might want to put on your to-do and to read list. Till next time, this is Caroline Miller with Just Read It, and thank you for being with us.